Welcome back, guys. Today we are going to make a tier list of the relics in Mr.Mine and differentiating whether it's an S tier all the way down to a D tier. Okay, the first major relic that you need the most is probably going to be the relic bag. And what it does, it will give you an extra slot that you can have another relic in. So you can get up, well, you start with 10 relics, you can get up to 15 at one time. It'd be very difficult to get though, because it's one of the rarest ones that you can get, but it's probably the most valuable one. The next most valuable one you would probably want is a Book of Secrets. Now it's this black book, and basically you can use it in the core to upgrade a different relic. So you can use it any of the relics that are in this tier list right now, you can use to enhance it and upgrade it. It's probably the best one you can get because you do want to upgrade them because it will help you so much later in the game. And basically you have two upgrades. You can upgrade it to warped, you can upgrade it to divine. If you want to upgrade it to divine, you will need 2 Book of Secrets, endless minor speed potion, which is this blue mini like potion flask. It's probably D tier. It's pretty poor. It really doesn't matter, you don't really need it. Basically it increases minor speed by 6% unless you enhance it with this Book of Secrets, but at base level it is 6%, and that's not very, doesn't help very much. It's a very common relic. You can just use buffs or use the buff lab later in the game to get this upgrade of increasing minor speed, because 6% is not a lot and it's not worth one of the slots. The next relic is going to be the golden shovel. It's going to be A tier. It increases sell price of all minerals and isotopes by base of 6%, and it's an uncommon rarity, so you actually see it pretty often. It's about the same rarity as the minor speed potion over here, and it's pretty good, especially later in the game. You probably don't need it beginning, because at the beginning of the first like 1,000 levels while you're in at Earth, you don't need money as much. Obviously you will need money, but later in the game after Earth you will really need money, so this will help a lot. Also, you don't really want to sell isotopes, so it's really just for minerals. The next relic is going to be the Key of Luck. It's alright. I'm going to put it in C tier. It just increases base level chest spawn frequency by 5%, and it's decently rare, rarer than the golden shovel, but it's not that good. It really doesn't do that much. You can use it, you can have it like early on when you kind of just need more chests, or if you don't really want to wait for chests, you can have it, but you kind of want to replace it later on. The next is Sword of War, which is going to be D tier. You don't really want anything related to battles as your relics. This one increases all battle damage by 5%, and that's not much. You should be able to upgrade your weapons fast enough where you won't die very much. Maybe later on you will die, but then you can just upgrade your weapons with all the gems later on. The golden pike is gonna be an A tier. It's probably the best relic you can have early on. Every kilometer depth reaches grants 12 hours worth of your highest mineral unlocked, which is really helpful early on. Really helpful. But it's not as valuable once you get to the moon. Once you get to the moon, it's pretty useless. But when you're on Earth, it is top tier. Literally the best relic in the game. It is very rare, it's legendary, it's one of the rarest ones besides probably the Book of Secrets or maybe the Key of Gold. The next is the Endless Scientist Speed Potion, which is pretty useless. You don't really want it. It's D tier. It just increases the experience of Scientist by a base level of 15%, which isn't great. All it really does is upgrade your Scientist slowly. If you're gonna have a relic related to scientists, you'll probably want the scythes. So this one's pretty useless. It doesn't really do much. You don't want it. Okay, the next one is Key of Gold. It is a legendary relic. It increases the current spawn rate of golden chests by 5%, which is pretty decent. That's why it's a B tier. If you have it, you can keep it, but you'll probably replace it in the future with some other relics that are more valuable and better that you want later. The next relic, the Endless Drill Speed Potion, is probably D tier. Very similar to the Miner Speed Potion, as in you can use buffs later on, like in the buff lab, to just increase drill speed, which is what it does. It increases drill speed. You can just use that later on, increase drill speed with the buff lab, which can go up to 100%, while this one's max with the divine level is only max 20%. Doesn't do much. Pretty useless. The next relic is Sparkly Distribution. It is in B tier. It's decent. It decreases blueprint purchase price by 6%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you can have multiple of those and add it up to, like, say you get 4 of them, you can get 24% off. So you basically get a fourth of the blueprint off, and especially when you need money for blueprints, it's really useful. As for long-term valuability, it's not the best. You can probably get it and then throw it away later on. It's alright, but it's pretty common as well, so you will see it often. The next is Book of Success, which is also B tier. It's basically, it increases all excavation success rates by 10%, and you usually, if you're gonna have a Book of Success, you'll only have 1 or 2. You'll use it so the scientists don't die. You can always choose the left scientist choice, which usually when the scientist is from level 0 to 30, the percentage of it dying on an excavation is less than 10% or 10% or less. So it will basically keep it alive until it reaches level 30. So it's a B tier. You'll probably only need 1 or 2 if you want to keep it, and it's alright. The next relic is the Steel Shield, which is in D tier. It is very useless. Just like I said about the Sword of War, is that it just helps in battles. It increases your battle max health by 5%, which you can literally just increase your max health by just drilling through the floor. Every floor gives you a certain amount of health, depending on where you are on the map. If you're in the moon, you'll get more. If you're on the earth, you'll get slightly less, but that will give you health. You don't need this. You just don't need it. It's pretty useless. You want to use your relic slots for other relics that are actually going to improve your efficiency in the game. The next is the Golden Scythe, which I'm going to put in B tier as well. It increases the chance a scientist will immediately resurrect when killed by 5%. When a scientist dies, you will click bury, and if you have one, there's a 5% chance when you click bury, it will just stay alive. The level will stay the same, and you'll be able to click another excavation, which is alright. If you build upon it, you can get like 5 of them. You can get 25%, and there's certain super miners that will buff your relic by like a certain percentage, and you can have that buffed relic above 100%. So you can have a Golden Scythe with a resurrection percentage of above 100%. So basically, whenever your scientists die, you'll get 100%. It will likely come back to life, which is pretty good. But you have to have that perfect scenario. You have to have that super miner. You have to have enough Golden Scythe, and you have to have the chance that the super miner goes to the Golden Scythe. It's not great. It doesn't help that much. So it's just in B tier. It's solid, but not great. The next is gonna be the Endless Gem Speed Potion. I'm putting it in C tier. I wouldn't really use it, but if you have a slot and you're making gems and you just want to be more efficient about that process, you want to basically use another catalyst that you can do. You can speed up the process, decrease the gem upgrade time by 5%, which is pretty nice. but you kind of want other slot. You want to use other relics for your slots. The next is Book of Ingenuity. It's gonna be D tier. All it does is increase the chance to find building materials in basic chests by 6%. Although early game you really want building materials, so you may be tempted to use this. You really don't need building materials that much as you think. A lot of the time, especially when you get to the moon, you'll just have a stockpile of building materials that you won't really use that much. And you don't really want to increase the building materials in basic chests by a percentage, because then you won't get the other items you might want from basic chests. So it's pretty detailed. You want to use other relics, not Book of Ingenuity. Next is Midas Touch. Basically increases the chance of selling for double the price when selling minerals and isotopes by 5%. So although Midas Touch is like one of the best buffs in the game, like not relics but buffs. When you really want money, you will want to sell your items, your minerals and isotopes, when you have that buff on, so you get the most value. But 5% is so low that it really isn't worth it. You could get really lucky, and that's why you might want to keep it, but it really isn't worth it. Next is Elemental Pike, which I'm going to also put in C tier. You might want this if you're really low on isotopes, because you may have been selling it. You don't really want to sell your isotopes. You're going to use them later on in the reactor and stuff like that. So you don't really want to sell it. So if you sold it, you might want to have some of these elemental pikes saved up just so you can get more isotopes for the case. But it's really, you don't really want it. If you have enough isotopes, there's no reason to have this relic. Next is Negative Attraction, which is going to be in D tier, just like the Miner Speed and the Drill Speed relics. This one also is a buff relic, where you can just have a buff with the buff lab and just automatically have this relic at a higher percentage. So basically what this relic does is increase money from treasure chests by 10%. It really doesn't do that much. Your treasure chest isn't going to be where you're making your money, most likely. It will just be like a small percentage of where you're making your overall money. The next is Book of Time, and that's going to be an A tier. Basically, it increases all time-lapse durations by 10%. Now, this might be one of the most useful ones, especially later on when it takes like 20 hours for one level of drill. You might want to use this so your time lapses are just better. There's longer durations, you can skip through time faster. Just an efficient process. It works really well. You can get it up to 100%. So what you can do is you can have 6 divine Book of Times, which will be up to 95% of increase all time lapse durations, which is one of the best use of your relics. Next relic is Wider Well. It's going to be in D tier. Again, you might be tempted to use this because once you're in after floor 300, once you've unlocked oil, you might think to need oil, so you might use this. But realistically, oil is only really needed in that small time frame after unlocking it, and up till around floor 800. That range is where you really need oil. After that, your oil is mostly full. You might use it a few times for different upgrades and etc. But in this case, you don't really want it. It's just not worth it. It's not worth the use of a relic slot for just increasing the rate of oil generation by 5%. The next is Pay Cut, which I'm going to put in the B tier. It decreases miner upgrade and higher cost by 5%, which is decent. What you can do is you can have about 10 maybe pay cuts, and then you can just buy a couple of miner slots and then sell them, and that'll give you 2 extra miner upgrades, so you can just have more miners. It'll just increase your efficiency. But the problem is getting 10 pay cuts. It will take a long time. It probably won't even be worth it. You might already have the upgrade unlocked by then. And the next one is this wooden shield. It's going to be in D tier, just like all the other fighting relics are also D tier. It's just not worth it. It doesn't matter. It won't help. You can just use your gems to upgrade your tools. Okay, next is the copper scythe, which is going to be in C tier. It's just worse. I'm also going to put the regular scythe in C tier. Both of these scythes are just slightly worse. In the golden scythe, they do the same thing. Respective copper one will resurrect when killed by 3%, and the regular scythe will resurrect when killed by 2%. So it's just slightly smaller and just not as worth it. You would want the golden scythes. Next is the copper pike. I'm going to put this in C tier as well. It is far worse than the golden pike. It is only 3 hours worth of your highest mineral unlocked when you mine at kilometer depth. So it is far more inefficient compared to the golden pike. So you really just want the golden pike, and they're also like pretty similar rates of getting them. So you really just want the golden pike. The light boot is going to be D tier. It's another fighting. It's just not worth it. You can just use your gems to upgrade. The sack of endurance. This is also D tier. The only way of using the sack of endurance is once you've gone later in the game and you've unlocked buff lab and you're using it at a consistent rate where you want to increase the duration of those buffs. But the problem is once you're at that spot, you've already used probably many Book of Secrets, and you've already found and made divine relics of higher relics like Golden Shovel or Book of Time that are much more useful and efficient in your way to mine deeper. So it really isn't worth it. The cargo expansion is probably going to be B tier. You can use it in a way. I would only use a few of them because they're max. You can get, if you divine one, you can get up to 45% increased cargo capacity, which is pretty good. Especially better than the regular, which is only 15%. So that is a pretty good improvement. So you can have like a couple, maybe 2 of those that are divine, and just have a 90% increased cargo capacity, which will help in a decently amount of way. But there is no reason to have more than a couple of these relics. Next, I'm just gonna put all of these bullseyes in D. They all do the same thing, just at different percentages. They all increase chance of critical hit by either 10, 7, or 5. They're all going to be D because, just like I've said, all of the fighting relics, they don't matter. Okay, and then the Egg of Incubation's also going to be D tier because it's just, all it does is increase maximum duration of online progress by 10%, and you don't really need that. 10% isn't that much. Anyway, it's just not worth the slot. Now there are 4 more relics that are in the game that are not on this tier list. They're all probably around the same rank, probably around B or C tier, depending on if you want to use them. There's the fuel extractor, which increases the speed that cave regenerate fuel by 7.5%. which is decent. Again, it's probably around B and C if you really want to use caves. Same as the fuel tank, which increased drone starting fuel by 7.5%. Again, B or C. If you really want to use just basic drones, the rocket booster can be useful, and that's probably around B tier. Increases the drone movement speed by 7.5%, which is decent if you really need to speed it up. And then there's the juicer, which is probably in D tier. All it does is increase super miner speed by 5%, which isn't great because super miners aren't great unless you get the best ones, which then are much better than the others.